Welcome back to the False Prophet channel, and this is Brother Jacob, and this is the False Prophet channel where we get Islam busted and the false prophet of Islam busted, Muhammad. In today's episode, or night rather, depending on what time you'll be viewing this video, we have something very special lined up for you. We will be exposing Muhammad, the bad advice giver, Muhammad, the pedophile encourager, and we are going to show you a verse that you probably already see on the screen coming from Najma, the chapter of the star, Najma. I'm not that good at pronouncing Arabic words. It really doesn't matter. It's a book full of lies anyway, but you can read what it says. But anyway, Surah 53:3, and it says, and this is the Sahih International Version, and it says, we'll play it for the Arabic speakers. That's the wrong one. Let's play. So as you see, the Muslims, they like to sing their verses. And by the way, the Muslims, you know where they got the singing of the verses in the Quran from? That's a tradition that came from the Christians. That's right. The little singy song fashion, how they sing the Quran. Oh, Muhammad, you are a liar. Oh. You know where they get that from? It came from the Christians. Everything they do is a copycat mimic of what the Jews did and what the Christians did. But the thing is, Muhammad, he envied the Jews because they had books written about their prophets and everything. Think about it. The Jews, they lived in the Middle East. Muhammad was an Arab. He lived in the Middle East. So he coveted what the Jews had. He see these people, they have books, they have a history, whereas he was from a Bedouin camp. Because Arab, the word Arab means Bedouin, one who lives in the desert. They didn't have a written history. They just had oral traditions. They didn't write anything down. So when he came in contact with the Jews and the Christians, and they had a long history, and they had books with genealogies written in it, Muhammad, he wanted the same thing for his people. So he actually, in the beginning of his religion, he looked up to the Jews. He looked up to the Christians. And that's why at one point in his beginnings, the Qibla, they actually bowed down towards Jerusalem. But then when the Jews rejected him and they said, "You're not a prophet," he got upset, he got angry, just like the Muslims in the comments section. And you know what he did? All of a sudden, he gets this revelation to change the Qibla to Mecca. So that's a little quick history fact. But let's read the following verse. It says, "Nor does he speak from his own desires." This is from Surah 53:3. Muhammad does not speak from his own inclination. Some translations say own desires. In other words, he didn't make up things that he told the Muslims. So they say. But we're going to show you that this is very, very false. We're going to show you that Muhammad did not receive revelations to tell his companions. And it's funny how they name the chapters in the Quran after things in creation. Like you have the chapter of the star. But the Quran's supposed to be an uncreated, eternal book that existed before any creation. So I find it funny that you will have a chapter in a book that's uncreated and supposed to have existed for all eternity, naming its. Let me show you real quick before we get into the subject matter. You see, they have the cow. How do you have a chapter named the cow and the Quran's supposed to be an uncreated book? Unless the Muslims just took the privilege of their own, because I don't see anywhere where Allah sent a revelation to Muhammad to name chapters after animals, like the cow. Here you have one, the women. So you telling me Muslims in your uncreated Quran, it had already had a chapter named the women, even before women were created? I find that very funny. The table spread, the cattle, the spoils of war. I find that very funny, man. But anyway, let's read this verse again. Nor does he speak from his own desires. So that's Surah 53:3. Now let's go to sunnah.com, and I want to show you this hadith. We're going to get the Muslims busted, and we about to show you that Muhammad was a bad advice giver and he was a pedophile encourager. That's right, he encouraged pedophilia. For those who don't know, Muhammad himself was a pedophile. He raped a little girl. We're not going to call it marriage. He didn't marry Aisha because she didn't give consent. She was only 6 years old when the dusty, dirty Muhammad married her. He was a dirty old man. And we're going to show that he was a hypocrite, he was a bad advice giver, and he encouraged pedophilia. Okay. And you know, before we read the hadith, okay, this is the one. Before we read a hadith, it's funny that these Muslims defend Muhammad. I find it very funny because in prison, if someone is convicted of child molestation or pedophilia, their life will be in danger, to the point the security guards, they will have to remove that inmate from general population, and they will replace him in isolated confinement in some cases. And sometimes the security guards would just turn the pedophile over to the hands of the inmates and let them do what they will. And sometimes they'll just watch the inmates violently kill the convicted child molester. Okay. Now, so the reason why I bring that up is because in some of those cases, the inmates will put the convicted child molester in a special area of the prison. He will be protected. So that's how I look at the Muslims. Muhammad is a self-proclaimed pedophile. He had no problems marrying a 6-year-old girl. Okay? In the regular world, everybody would want to jump on him. In the regular normal world where people look at child molestation as the worst thing that you can do, in the regular society where people have sanity, this man would be public enemy number one. Okay? So, but in the Muslim world, they defend Muhammad. So I basically look at them like the security guards in the prison who defend the pedophile. So you have these Muslim men in my comment section defending the pedophile, defending the one who put his hands on little kids and sexually assaulted Aisha. So these Muslims, I don't even respect them as men, because how can you say that you are a real man, but you follow a pedophile? A man who is the one who initiated pedophilia in the Arab culture. Yes, Muhammad. You don't find anywhere in Arab history where someone legitimized marrying children. You don't find that until Muhammad. He is the one who instituted the practice of marrying children, not marrying, but sexually assaulting children and calling it marriage. And then you'll have pedophile supporters like Muslim Cheerleader, who runs the YouTube channel Muslim Warrior. You'll have the Muslims in my comment section. But these men, you can't even respect them as men. Okay? And before we get into the subject matter, I want you all to ask yourself this. How can you, if you are a Muslim and you defend Muhammad and his pedophilia, how would you explain, let's just say it was a 6-year-old girl and she was molested by a 54-year-old man. How would you explain to her the very thing that happened to her in the story of Muhammad? If you was trying to do some type of therapy on this child molestation victim, how would reading the story of Muhammad molesting Aisha help heal the wounds of a 6-year-old girl who was molested by a 54-year-old man, like in the case of Muhammad? What would you tell that 6-year-old girl? Do you think that her hearing the story of Muhammad and what he did to Aisha, do you think that would help her get over the past and the nightmares and the torment in her mind of being child molested? Since you say that Muhammad is the best example, would he be the best example for a 6-year-old girl who was molested? How would you explain that to her? How would you sit as a Muslim? How would you explain to a 6-year-old victim of child molestation that Muhammad, what would you say? Muhammad, the one that we follow, he did the very thing as the man who hurt you. He was also 54 like the man who molested you. And the girl he molested was also 6 years old. How do you win a girl over who went through child molestation over to Islam by telling her the same story of a man who did something to a girl, the very same thing that happened to her? How do you win her over? How do you convince her that this is the right religion, to follow a child molester just like the man who molested you? I want you Muslims to help us out with that. And now let's get into the meat of the subject. We about to show you how Muhammad was a bad advice giver and let me get the right hadith up. He was a bad advice giver and he encouraged people to be pedophiles. If I can find the right hadith, let me look for it. Share, like, and subscribe when you see these videos. Let's bring up this hadith. Where is it at? The Muslims, they don't like to hear the truth. You know, it hurts them. They get violent when you tell the truth. Because the devil, he doesn't like to hear what's right. Here we go. Come on. I don't like to keep people waiting. Here it goes. Should be this one. Here it goes, right here. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. Here we go. Let's get into it. And this is Sahih al-Bukhari. So the Muslims can't tell us It's weak. It doesn't say that, brother Jacob. It doesn't say that, CP. You Islamophobe. It's weak. It's da'if. It doesn't say that in the Arabic. That hadith was rejected. One of the narrators was found to be a liar, so you can't use that one. Well, that's not what that word means. See, that word can have 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10 different meanings. It doesn't say that, brother Jacob. Let's read. And this is Sahih al-Bukhari. It was narrated Jabir or Jabir. Allah's, Satan's messenger said to me, have you got married, O Jabir? I replied, yes. He asked, what, a virgin or a matron? I replied, not a virgin, but a matron. He said, why did you not marry a young girl who would have fondled with you? I replied, O Satan's messenger, my father was martyred on the day of Uhud or Yuhud and left 9 orphan daughters who are my 9 sisters. So I disliked to have another young girl of their age, but I sought an elderly woman who could comb their hair and look after them. The prophet said, you have done the right thing. Okay. Now it's about to heat up for the Muslims. Now let's get into it. Now, first and foremost, what stands out to you when you look at this hadith? Let's go point by point. The first thing is you have a man named Jabir or Jabir. He's one of the companions of Muhammad. And Muhammad is asking him about his marriage life. He asked him, had he got married yet? And the guy replied, yes. And Muhammad asked him, had he married a young girl or an older woman, a matron or a virgin? And he replied, no, I didn't marry a young girl. And he replied, not a virgin, but an older woman, okay? And then Muhammad says, why didn't you marry a young girl? In other words, what, you're not a pedophile like me? I mean, are you serious, Jabir? You mean to tell me why didn't you marry a young girl so you can fondle her and take her innocence away and, she can fondle with you, a young girl. Notice it doesn't say a young woman, a young girl. This is their prophet. This is their best example. He's encouraging pedophilia. And let's see how Jabir responds to him. He said, O Allah's messenger, my father was martyred on the day of Uhud or however you want to pronounce it, and left 9 orphan daughters who are my 9 sisters. So I dislike to have another young girl of their age. Like, duh, like why? This guy had more morality and more sense than Muhammad. He's looking at things from a grown-up perspective. Muhammad was looking at things from a fetish of being with a little child perspective. This guy was looking at real life and reality, that he had 9 young sisters who were orphans. And he didn't want to marry a young girl their age. How would those little 9 orphan girls respect him as a man, as an older person in their life, if he's married to someone their own age? And that's another question to bring up. If Muhammad, just imagine if Donald Trump was married to a 6-year-old girl. And imagine when he, does his presidential debates versus Joe Biden. Imagine him on stage saying, I would like my wife of 6 years old to stand up in the audience. Yes, isn't she very beautiful, everybody? Everybody give her a hand clap. See, you got to bring things into perspective. Take it out of the 7th century and bring it into the 21st century. You got to bring everything into perspective because Islam is a religion where it cannot be reformed, and everything that Muhammad did is supposed to be the example for all ages, not just the 7th century. Because the excuse the Muslims like to use, they like to say, well, that was during that time. But no, Abduls. You see, the way that Muhammad lived, that's the example for all ages. Okay? Now, so this guy, Jabir, he had more sense than Muhammad. He said, I dislike to have another young girl of their age. So I, married a older woman who could comb their hair and look after them. Okay? Now, back to what I was saying. If Muhammad was alive today and he had a 6-year-old wife, how could you expect other 6-year-old Muslim girls to respect Muhammad and he had a 6-year-old as his wife? That's bringing down, that's disrespecting yourself. How can you respect a man who's married to a 6-year-old girl and he's the leader of your nation? Muslims, can you answer that question for us? And how can you defend something like that? That's why I don't get these Muslims. Like, if I was an atheist and if I wasn't a member of any religion, as soon as somebody would tell me that this man was married to a 6-year-old, before they can even get old 6-year out of their mouth, I would be like, oh, time to go. This is not the religion for me. Oh, time to go. Sorry, see you later. Thanks for the pamphlet, but nope. And I'll rip the pamphlet up and throw it in their face. That's how you got to look at things. And what else? Let's look at what else stands out in this hadith. Here you have Muhammad being a hypocrite because he is telling this man, why didn't you marry a young girl? But last time I checked, Muhammad married Khadijah. Last time I checked, Khadijah was way older than Muhammad. So Muhammad, he must ask himself, why didn't you marry a young little girl that you can play and fondle with instead of marrying Khadijah, a woman that was older than you? Do y'all get what I'm saying? So this hadith is going to show you a lot of things. So we've pointed out that he's a hypocrite. He married an older woman. He married Khadijah. We pointed out that Jabir had more morality and common sense than Muhammad. So let's read the ending part of this hadith. When Jabir was answering him, he said, I dislike to have another girl of their age. I dislike to have another girl of their age, but I sought an elderly woman who could comb their hair and look after them. And then look what Muhammad said. He said, you have done the right thing. So basically, he was like, he scratched his head and said, you know what, Jabir, you're making a good point. I was wrong. I gave you bad advice. You have done the right thing. You have done the right thing. You see? And this shows you the immaturity level of Muhammad. He was not fit to be a leader. Okay? He was not fit to be a leader. Because a leader is supposed to lead by example. So if he married an older woman, how can you tell somebody else, why did you not marry a young girl? When you yourself married Khadijah. And then, here's the nail right here in the coffin. We just read Surah 53:3. It says that he does not speak of his own desire. So if that's the case, then if he was a prophet, he should have known better to think before he speaks. But he didn't. He should have known better. And as you see, the man corrected him. He didn't take the advice of Muhammad. Muhammad advertised it. He said, why didn't you marry a young girl so she can fondle with you and you can fondle with her? You see? And this just shows you that Muhammad was not the best example of all time. He did speak of his own desire, even though the Quran says he doesn't. But this hadith proves that the Quran is a lie because he was imposing his fetish for young children upon Jabir. But the Quran says he doesn't speak from his own desires. He wasn't giving good advice. He wasn't encouraging this man to do the right thing. Because when he asked that question, why did you not marry a young girl who would have fondled with you? That's his way of saying, well, Jabir, you should have married a young girl, in a question form. You get what I'm saying? And what did Jabir do? He corrected him. So he showed more maturity than Muhammad. And Muhammad had to admit, you have done the right thing by marrying somebody of your age and not a little child. So when he told Jabir that you have done the right thing, he basically said, by me marrying a young child, I did the wrong thing. You did the right thing. So the Muslims, they can't tell us that Muhammad was the best example. As you see, Muhammad gives bad advice. He encourages Muslims to do the wrong thing. And to be fair for the Muslims, because we don't like to make things up, he asked the question. But this question was insinuating something. It was insinuating, because sometimes people can ask questions, but at the same time, they can be insinuating or checking your action. When he said, why did you not marry a young girl who would have fondled with you? You see, he was only thinking about the sexual aspect. So that's letting you know that marriage to Muhammad was all about sex. Think about it. He didn't ask him why you didn't marry such and such because this age has a better character, and you and this person will have a lot of things in common and you will be able to get along. That's not what he said. What did he focus on? He focused on pedophile behavior. Why did you not marry a young girl who would have fondled with you? So he was speaking from his own desire, his own fetish of fondling little children. And he ended up having to tell Jabir that you have done the right thing. He admitted that he gave the wrong advice, or that he was insinuating the wrong thing. And with that, tell us what you feel about it to the Christians. Muslims, leave your comments below. Let us know, Muslims, why do you defend this pedophile? How can you write us an essay in the comments section, Muslims? How can you defend what you just read? It's no way in the world. How can you defend what you just read? And the example I gave earlier about what would you tell a little girl who was a victim of child molestation? at the hands of a 54-year-old man, and she was 6 years old. Would you read the story of Muhammad sexually abusing Aisha to this 6-year-old girl? How would you make it right to a 6-year-old girl, that Aisha being with Muhammad was the right thing, and this little girl was a victim of the very same thing? Let us know in the comment section. And with that, this is Brother Jacob signing out.